All right, we're going to pick up where we left off. I'm going to go back just a little bit and start with Reform Interrupted, the Ferguson's administration, 1915 to 1917. I was running out of my time during our last video lecture. Although Fergusonism was identified with demagoguery and corruption, James Paw Ferguson was a self-made man with whom the oppressed and tenant farmers strongly identified. Despite Ferguson's impeachment, some reforms were implemented, including Ferguson's Farm Tenancy Bill, capping farm rents, and increased funding for colleges. His second term saw even higher educational appropriations, expansion of the college network, a revision of labor laws, and a state highway commission. Border problems escalated with the discovery of the Radical Manifesto, the Plan de San Diego, in January 1915. Ferguson ordered all available Texas Ranger companies to South Texas to restore order, even as U.S. Army General John J. Pershing marched into Mexico to capture the Mexican revolutionary Pancho Villa. Atrocities implicating the Texas Rangers were investigated by the state legislature J.T. Canales, resulting in smaller ranger companies. Ferguson's troubles mounted when he battled against the University of Texas faculty members regarding the university's appropriation of the Permanent University Fund, which he threatened to veto. The University Board of Regents called for his impeachment, and receiving the backing of the Texas Equal Suffrage Association leader, Minnie Fisher Cunningham, Ferguson resigned to avoid impeachment. The Court of Impeachment removed him anyway and banned him from holding future state offices. This had no impact on the Ferguson plans, however. He unsuccessfully ran for the U.S. Senate in 1922, while his wife obtained the Texas governorship in 1925. Will Hobby's election as governor signified a victory for Woodrow Wilson's policies, as well as a rejection of Fergusonism. Hobby supported suffrage and prohibition, but tensions between white and blacks accelerated. Even black men in uniform were lynched or court-martialed for causing riots. Texas contributed greatly to the war effort. After the war ended, the state's veterans were generously provided with free tuition at state institutions and assistance in finding employment. World War I increased women's opportunities in the workforce and in voluntary agencies, fueling the suffrage movement's final surge and contributing to the concept of the new woman, vigorous and progressive, who saw options in life other than marriage and motherhood. The women's club movement significantly impacted reform in the creation of public parks, state asylum institutions, and city beautification movements. Women were also involved in the Settlement House movement, the Young Women's Christian Association, the League of Women Voters, the Congress of Mothers and Parent-Teacher Associations, the Women's Christian Temperance Union, as well as other professional organizations. Women also played a key role in the passage of the Prohibition Amendment. Prohibition dominated Texas politics and split the Democratic Party into competing factions. Lobbying groups such as the Texas Brewers Association and the Retail Liquors Dealers Association tried to influence elections with illegal campaign contributions. Overall, alcohol was associated with ethnic groups and the Democratic Party. It became unpatriotic to drink or to criticize the war effort. Progressives saw nothing wrong in opposing their values on others, thus protecting morality through prohibition. They expected public schools and other state institutions to Americanize foreigners, indoctrinating them in middle-class values. The state legislature mandated the teaching of patriotism and citizenship. Laws were changed to prevent the foreign-born from voting, and Germans in particular were ostracized. After the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, everything associated with the Soviet Union was also regarded as un-American. Bolsheviks, socialists, and minority groups in general were harassed and deprived of their civil liberties. The administration of William P. Hobby and Pat M. Neff coincided with new job opportunities and prosperity. After the economic downturn of 1920 and 1920-1921, Hobby, a business progressive, worked to strengthen Texas' expanding urban economic networks, but only his measures to aid education succeeded due to an unconcerned legislator and public. Neff was successful in consolidating the Pure Food and Drug Department with the Health Department and the creation of cooperation marketing associations for farmers and water reclamation and irrigation districts. Neff also put a stop to the easy granting of parolees and used martial law on at least 2 occasions. His legacy was the Good Roads movement and the creation of the State Parks Network. Trying to enforce prohibition, however, caused Neff his biggest headache. Interestingly, he supported the Ku Klux Klan opposition to bootlegging. Failed attempts to enforce prohibition caused a crime wave and a general decline in community values. Historians have cited urban growth as the cause of tensions between rural and urban Americans. World War I and the Red Scare simply exacerbated the tensions. The new Klan emerged in the same time period and appealed to the new urban middle class, while still opposing radical Catholics, Jews, blacks, Mexicans, and foreign immigration. The hub of Klan support was in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, East Texas, and Central Texas. Imposing moral conformity rather than racism and nativism was the Klan's major motivation. Neff and other members of the elite, including judges and law enforcement officers, gave unspoken support to the Klan, and Neff refused to condemn Klan extra-legal use of force. Many Protestant churches endorsed its anti-Semitic and anti-Catholic disposition. In 1924, the year that Neff finally spoke out against the Klan, voters nominated Miriam A. Ferguson for governor rather than the Klan candidate. Membership in the Klan began to drop, but the organization demanded for conformity accompanied a resurgence of religious fundamentalism. Protestant churches and ministers took the lead in the fight to establish moral conformity in the midst of revolutionary social changes of the 1920s. Texas, however, did not pass a law barring the teaching of the theory of human evolution in public schools due to its heterogeneous population and strong opposition from state legislators from the German Hill County and the Rio Grande Valley. The end of progressivism in Texas came with Miriam Ferguson's gubernatorial victory. Ma Ferguson was not reform-minded, and during her administration, the political controversies that had plagued her husband's administration continued. After a young state attorney general, Dan Moody, defeated Ma Ferguson in the 1926 race, progressives' reform took a new direction: business progressivism. Governmental efficiency and civil service, new taxation laws, more modern fiscal control on state agencies, a reorganization of part of the state judiciary, and expanded appointive powers for the governor became key priorities. In 1928, the unity of progressive Democrats was shattered with Al Smith's presidential nomination. Apparently, the Roman Catholic and wet candidate was just too much for some Democrats to accept. In November, Texas joined the North Carolina and Florida in voting Republican for Herbert Hoover in the presidential election for the first time since Reconstruction. Moody's second term witnessed the great stock market collapse of 1929 and an economy in tatters. Although the rhetoric of business progressivism went silent during the Great Depression, remnants can be found in the popular acceptance of the public service functions of government.